Hello everyone. This is Dr. Rachita Misra speaking to you on your software engineering course. So today's lesson we will be discussing on the risk assessment and the management of the risk. The topics that we will follow is the risk management process, and then we will look into the risk projection activities, followed by mitigation, monitoring and management. So we have seen this risk management process in the earlier slide also, and we have seen that there are four major steps. The first one being the identification of the risk, and then the risk projection, which includes estimation and assessment of the risk. And after that we will look into the risk refinement, which is the third step. And finally, the handling of the risk in three different ways, that is the mitigation or avoidance, and how to monitor, the monitoring, and the final management or the contingency. So let's come to the risk projection. So as I was telling, that risk projection mainly involves estimation and assessment. So sometimes it is also called as the risk estimation. It attempts to rate each risk in two ways: the likelihood or the probability of the risk becoming real, and the consequences or the effect or the result of the problems associated with the risk in case it occurs. So you can think of it as two attributes of the risk. And the planner, the project planner or the project manager who is doing the planning, along with other managers and the technical staff, they have to do four risk projection activities. First of all, they have to establish a scale that reflects the supposed likelihood of the risk. That means on what way they will determine the likelihood, how that scale will be established. And then they will describe the consequences of the risk. And that means they will analyze the risk, and they'll find out which are the software components that will be affected by this risk when it is incident, and what will be the consequence, what is the degree of that consequence. And depending on those areas which will affect it, they will estimate the impact of the risk on the project as well as the product. Then they will note the overall accuracy of the risk projection so that there will be no misunderstanding. So whatever they have done, the risk impact and the probability, they will recheck it, review it, so that it is well understood. The intent of these steps is to consider risk in a manner that leads to prioritization. Basically, there are so many risks in the project which is coming from different sources that we have seen in the last class. It comes from business side, it can come from the project side, or it can come from the product side. And therefore, the product side means basically the technical skills, technical areas. Therefore, there will be so many risks, it will be almost difficult, almost impossible to consider all the risks. So after only determining the influence and the probability of the risk, we can have a prioritization. And only out of all the potential risks, only the prioritized risks will be considered for risk management, and the team will allocate resources when they will have the most impact. So only if there is a high impact, those risks are what are the important risks which needs to be given attention and provided additional resource or funding. So how to build a risk table? What is a risk table? We have discussed in the previous class that when we identify the risk, we build a risk table. So risk table helps in documenting the identified risks and their attributes. So that means we have identified all the potential risks. So unless we keep it documented somewhere, then it will be very difficult for us. And just to remind you all, how did we do this identification? We tried to create the checklists, the questionnaires, and we also looked into the past project. So we had known risks, predictable risks, and also unpredicted risks. So most of the predictable and the known lists can be determined by these kind of methods. So all those risks that we did identify in the first step of the identification, we have to initially document it in the risk table, and along with it, whatever are the attributes that we have analyzed and we have been able to collect, that we have to note down. So the lists are listed in the first column. So the first column in the risk table will have the risk, that is the risk ID and the risk description, and with its category in the second column. What could be the category? Whether it has come from business, or it has come from project, or it has come from technical. And we can also divide that into sub levels, sub major categories, and provide a lower level category. The probability of occurrence of the risk is then entered in the next column. This can be estimated by the team members either by the past project data, or you can analyze the current project, its product characteristics, and the environment in which we are going to conduct the project. So this we have discussed in the last class in the identification. So just as we are identifying by looking at so many aspects of the project, so also we will look at those same aspects to find out what is the probability of occurrence, what is the likelihood that it will be incident. Then or you can say the frequency of it. And then we will also have to assess the impact, or rather estimate the impact. So the impact of each risk item will have to be determined against the risk components. And we saw that the risk components were performance, support, cost, and schedule of the project. So how much does it impact these four major parameters of the project, and that we have to see for each of the risk. And when we do it, we have to give some kind of impact category, which we said could be catastrophic, critical, marginal, negligible, or in other words, very high, medium, and low. This is converted to a quantitative scale. So once we have got the qualitative method, because we have to compare it, so always it is better that we put a quantitative scale 1, 2, 3, 4 or something like that. Now once the table is complete, then we have to prioritize the risk. So there are different methods to prioritize that risk. Most of the time we try to prioritize it based on the impact, because impact will directly give us the cost. So if the impact is high, then we have to think of some kind of activity or some kind of measures that we have to take to either avoid it or to manage it or handle it when it is incident. But suppose the impact is low or the probability is also low, then we can ignore. So because we cannot take all the risks, we said that we cannot take all the risks, so we have to prioritize. So when we prioritize, then we sort them in order of in impact. Also we can sort them in order of probability, because those which are high probability, very high probability, they will anyway come, so we have to be ready with some measures for it. Then we come to the this is a example of the risk table I have given. So what will happen? High probability, high impact risk get to the top of the table, and probability risk drops to the low probability risk drops to the bottom. So this is your first order prioritization. Then we can have a cutoff. The project manager studies the resultant sorted table and they can define the cutoff. And after we have done the sorting, we can decide a threshold of either the probability and the impact or both, and decide which are the top important risks we will prioritize and take up. So that cutoff line has to be created in the risk table, and risks that follow below the line are considered as second order prioritization. So only after we have exhausted with the first order prioritization, then we can select a few risks from the rest of it, and we will have to see whether we can handle those also. We can do the planning and the management for those risks also, few of them. We don't take everything. So we take it in stages. First we handle the top priority risks, then those which are above the cutoff line, then we can see whether we have enough resources and time to manage the second order. Then we have to select a few out of the second order. We have to do the second order prioritization. So the risk, impact and probability have a distinct influence on the management concern. So that is why the risk factor that has high impact but very low probability of occurrence, then management will give little attention. However, high probability occurrence will also be require attention. So although impact is the first thing that we do, but we cannot ignore the high probability risks also. And all the risks lie above the cutoff line must be managed and specified in the last column of the table under the RMMM column. So RMMM stands for the risk management plan. So we will see what is RMMM, and so all those prioritize for which we will do. So we have to tick that this is the risk for which we have to create the RMMM plan. So if you see this picture, this is just another way of denoting the risk table. Instead of a tabular diagram, we have used the matrix kind of structure. It is normally called risk, probability and impact matrix, and this is also very highly used in the software world. And here if you see, the boxes have got the risks, the risk IDs inside it. So we don't have the scope to write the complete risk description, but we can denote the risk ID. And on one side, the x direction, x-axis, we have the probability, which goes from low, medium, high, very high. And on the other side, we have the impact, which is the low, medium, high, very high. So those risks which are in the lower probability and lower impact automatically are not the prioritized risks. So all the potential risks will be inside the matrix, but only those risks which are on the higher right side or top right, those will be the prioritized ones. So we can draw a threshold here like this. This is impact. So impact high we are taking, and very high probability we are taking. Now assessing the risk impact. So three factors can affect the consequence that are likely if the risk does occur. So whenever we write the risk impact, we have to take into account these three things. These are kind of attributes of the risk impact: the nature, scope and the timing. When we say nature, that means it indicates the problem that are likely to happen if it occurs. So what is the nature of the risk? Which kind of environment does it affect? For example, a technical risk, the development environment change. So that is how it will affect. So development environment change is a technical risk. Then we have to write the scope of the risk. The scope of the risk combines the strictness with its overall distribution. That means what is the kind of area it will affect. Will it affect the full project, or will it affect a part of it, a small functionality, or what? So also how we can say how many customers will be affected by whichever functionality it will affect. how many customers will be affected. If it is a functionality which is used by many customers, then the scope is very high. But if it is a functionality which is rarely used, then we can say the scope of this, the impact of this risk has got a lower scope or a smaller scope. It has a very narrow scope. And the third one is the timing of the risk, which considers when it will happen, and if it happens, how long it will happen. So we cannot say exactly when it will happen, but we can predict what is the likely time it will occur, and if it occurs, what will be the duration in the project it will be incident. So that is about assessing the risk impact. And then we will have to determine the overall consequence of the risk. That means what we have done in a very qualitative manner, we have to assign a cost to it. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for us to get funding for the risk management, whatever are the measures we will take, because each risk, managing the risk or mitigating the risk, handling the risk requires some kind of a cost, because we have to do some extra work for it. So we have to, whatever is the qualitative attribute we have given for its severity, that severity of the risk has to be expressed in terms of a cost or a quantitative manner. So determine the average probability, that is what we mean by determining the overall consequence of a risk. So determine the average probability of the occurrence. And here we are telling average because it might have happened in many projects. So each project the probability may be different. So we have to calculate some kind of an average. And then for each risk component we have to do it separately. Then determine the impact for each component based on the criteria. So we have 4 components we have seen that might get affected. So for each criteria we have to see and determine its severity, the severity of the impact, whether it is high or very, very high, catastrophic, or is it low. And then we will have to combine them into a single qualitative measure. And after doing that, after completing the risk table, we will analyze the results, and as we have explained earlier. And now what we will do, we will measure the risk exposure. How we will measure the risk exposure? Risk exposure is measured in terms of money, that is it has a cost. So we will take the probability and apply it to the project cost. Then we will have a percentage of the cost of the project which can be assigned as the value of the risk or the cost of the risk. So P is the probability of occurrence here, and C is the cost to the project. So if you multiply these two, then you will get the risk exposure. This is the exposure that will happen to the risk in terms of a costing of the project. Now this is an example to explain that concept. So let us say a software team defines a project risk in the following way. Now what is the risk? The risk is only 70% of the software components scheduled for reuse, and remaining functionality will have to be custom developed. So initially they thought that it will be component based, but later on they found that only 70% can be used. So in that case, the remaining functions, that is the 30%, will have to be developed. So that is a risk, because they have not architect, they are not used, they are not prepared for it. So now they have to get prepared for it. Then what is the risk probability? The probability that it will happen when they start taking the reusable components, the probability is, it may be very high, it may be like 80%. So initially they said, they identified that all the components in the project, they may not get standard components because there are specific product specific components. So 30% they will have to build, and only 70% they will use, and they feel that 70% not getting it is also 80% likely risk probability of this thing happening, whatever they have said. Now they will do the risk impact. So what they will do, suppose this complete project has got 100 components. So that means 70% can be used. So that means 30 components would have to be developed from scratch. So this is the risk impact. Then we will have to quantify it in terms of risk exposure. So now again we will take some assumption. This assumption we have taken here, but it has to be seen from the project database. So let us say the component is 100 LOC. Actually this will come from the estimation also. It can also come from the estimation if the estimation is completed. Otherwise they have to go to project database. So if you take, instead of each component, let's say take an average, because it's very difficult to do it each one by one. So, and the local data indicates that the software engineering cost for each LOC is $14. So what will be the cost of the component? The cost of the component will be 14 into 100. And if we have to develop 30 components, because there is a probability that 70% will be can be reused, so the overall cost will be 40,000, 42,000, 30 multiplied by 100 into 14. That means 42,000 will be have to be developed. So now what is the risk impact? Because we have not used what is the probability. So now whatever we are stating is not a whole truth, but it has a probability or likelihood that this statement that we are making is true. So now we have to apply the probability to this cost. So when we apply the probability, it will reduce. So the risk exposure will be only 33,600 and not 42,000. So that means if this thing happens, then the cost impact to the project will be 33,600, because so many components has to be developed from the scratch. We cannot do a complete component based development. So now we are still at the assessing of the risk impact. So we have seen how the risk exposure is calculated. So once the estimate of the cost of the risk is derived, we compute the RE of each risk in the table, which are above the cutoff point, cutoff threshold for the impact and also for the probability. The total risk exposure for all these risks can be used to adjust the final cost estimate for a project. So it is likely that some risks will cost less and some risks will cost more. So we have to see that and we have to sum it up, and that will be the final cost for all the risk. That means that is the cost of managing risks, and that cost has to be built into our project cost. So our project cost will get escalated by the risk. So if you remember, we always said that before the estimate we do the risk analysis. So this is the reason why it has to be done, because whenever we do the risk analysis, our cost goes on increasing. Now the risk table should be revisited. So once we have made the risk table, it is not static, because the environment changes, the project is progressing, so the circumstances keep changing. So at regular intervals we have to keep revisiting the risk table to see if whatever we had done will remain as such, or any circumstances has changed which is affecting the risk table. So what may happen, some risks may have to be removed because they are no longer necessary, and some new risk may have to be added because now the situation has changed, and some of the priority or the impact may increase. So the relative position of the risks in the priority of the risk table, that may have to get changed. So, this, as you can see, the risk the risk table managing is a very dynamic situation, because as the project progresses, lot of things keep changing. So we can compare risk exposure for all lists to the cost estimate of the project. So that is another thing. Sometimes we check all the risks to the cost estimate. And if the risk exposure of all the risks is a higher percentage, is a very large percentage of the cost, let's say for example 50% or more, then it is a very high risk project. In such cases, the feasibility have to be re-evaluated, whether it is worth taking up this project or not, or maybe changing the way we are delivering it, or changing the way, what is the process model we will take. Maybe we will have to consider the spiral model, or we will have to change some of the scope and redefine the project. So now we come to the next step in the risk management, that is risk refinement. Why do we have to do the risk refinement? Now what happens is, when in the initial stage we have defined some risk, and the risk specification that we have given, or the description of the risk that we have written, is in a very general form, because we had less idea about the project. Now when the project progresses, or some more analysis has been done, technical work has started, we are more equipped to redefine it with more details. So why it is necessary? Because it will help us in the mitigation plan and the monitoring and the management. So let us see how it helps. Because if it is a very general statement, we don't know exactly how to, the mitigation may not be effective. We don't know how to monitor it. The contingency plan may not be effective. So for making it effective, all these strategies and actions to make it effective, we may have to redefine our risk. That is called as the refinement. So it may involve redefining or breaking the risks into detailed levels. So one of the technique that project managers use is called the CTC format. What does CTC stand for? It stands for condition, transition and consequence. C, T and C, condition, transition and consequence. So what it says, that every risk that you have defined here, the general statement, you need to write it in this form. That is why we call it CTC format. So what we can say, we can restate the risk as a, given that a condition will happen, then there is a concern that something will happen, or a possibility that something will happen. This is the actual impact, the risk impact, or the risk that will happen. And if it happens, then this is the result or the consequence that will happen. So first is the condition, then there is a concern, and this concern will have a particular possibility. It is not a definite thing, but possibility that this concern will come, and that concern will have a consequence, a result. Now these conditions can be multiple. So initially the statement that we gave was a single one, but now you can have different conditions here, and accordingly you will have the different concerns, but however the consequence will be same. So the risk consequence is same, the risk impact is same, but it can happen due to different conditions. So then it is not a single risk, but it is multiple risks. So the conditions can be multiple, the consequences will be same. So what we were discussing is that we will have to restate the risks in a way that we can refine it, and we can have sub conditions in which the risks can be broken to multiple risks, so that it is easier for us to determine the mitigation and the management. So this is an example. This is the given risk statement, the same statement that we were discussing earlier. Given that most reusable components adhere to the design standards, but some do not, then there is a concern that possibly only 70% of the planned reusable components can be integrated into the software product that we are building, resulting in custom engineer the other 30% of the components. So this is the same risk that we were looking at, but now it has been reworded in the condition, transition and the consequence format. Now this condition can be refined. Now here that reusable components adhere to design standards, that can be redefined as different sub-conditions. Some reusable components from third party was developed with who had no knowledge of the internal design standards. This could be one condition. The other condition could be that design standards for interfacing components are not finalized. Because the interfacing component standard is not finalized internally, and therefore there is these external reusable components available will not conform because we do not know. So whoever is developing these reusable components outside, they will not be able to conform it. So this may be the reason, the condition for which this will happen. And the other subcondition could be few reusable components are implemented in a programming language that will not be supported in the project's environment. And therefore this kind of problem will happen. So this is just an example how you can break it. There may be many more, and this is not the only risk that will happen. So what it means is that every risk can be restated with sub-conditions, so that this is a very generalized thing, and now this is specific to a particular thing. So now you can have a mitigation plan for this, you can have a mitigation plan for this, and you can have a mitigation plan. So for each condition, you can define the mitigation plans. So here, though the consequence of these sub-risks are the same, it provides the isolation of the general risk to a more specified risks, so that we can have mitigation and the management for each one. It can be differentiated because we have separated it. Now we come to the last step in the risk management, which is risk mitigation, monitoring and management. So this is why it is called R and M and M and M. So you have 3 M's and R. So R triple M. So that is why that plan is called R triple M plan. So now what we have to do, we have to understand what is mitigation, what is monitoring, and what is management. So what is the goal of the risk analysis? Basically, we are doing all this risk analysis and the management to assist the project team in developing a strategy for dealing with the risk. So just identifying the risk is not sufficient. We have to find what is the strategy how we will handle the risk, or how we will deal with the risk. So there are two ways of dealing with the risk. One is the risk avoidance or the mitigation, and the other is the risk management and contingency planning. That means sometimes first we try to reduce the risk to happen, and so that it will not happen. So we have avoided the risk. Then we will keep on monitoring to see that whether it is getting avoided or it is still getting incident. And when it incidents, we have to be ready with the contingency plan, how to deal with it. So an effective strategy for doing the risk management has to consider 3 things. One is the risk avoidance or the mitigation. Second one is the risk monitoring, that is the second M. And the third one is the risk management, which includes a contingency planning. What is the contingency plan for each, so that the risk, if it is incident, how we will handle it. So in the proactive approach to risk, avoidance is always the best strategy. So first we will try to mitigate it. And when we mitigate it, we will reduce the probability of the occurrence. So when we are saying avoid, means basically we will reduce its probability of occurrence. So if the probability of occurrence becomes 0, then it is totally avoided. Otherwise, at least we will reduce it by taking certain measures. For example, assume that the high staff turnover is noted as a project risk. In this case, and we all know that every project, this is always a problem. So if the experienced people and knowledgeable people leave the project in the middle way, then the project will be doomed. That we know, because there will be very difficulty. So if we have identified this risk in the beginning, then we will have to do the mitigation first. So in the mitigation, what we will do, you have to develop a strategy for reducing the turnover. You have to give some incentive or something like that, so that the people will not leave the project, so that turnover ratio will become less. So we can do something like this: meet with the current staff, determine the cause of the turnover. What is the actual cause? Why are people thinking of going? Maybe low pay, competitive job market. Then try to mitigate those that are under the control of the project. The project manager cannot control everything, so but certain things they can control. Then organize project teams so that the information about each development activity is widely circulated, because he has to face this. So then what will happen if some of the people who are very critical, if they keep the information of the project in their head and don't share it, then when they leave, there will be a gap. So the project manager will have to organize the team in such a way that the information about the project work and it will be widely circulated among many people, so that a lot of people will be aware of what is happening. Also they will have to be, he has to be strict on the documentation. So if a documentation is there, even if a person leaves, then another person come and see the document and start the work. So he has to see that he has to establish a mechanism by which he will ensure that the documents are properly developed as per the standard, and they are developed in a timely manner. They are also reviewed and by others, and it is being followed. So in that way he can reduce the turnover risk. So these are all the ways he can mitigate it. Then he will conduct peer reviews of all the work so that other people will also know. So what is peer review? Peer review means the software engineers are among themselves reviewing it. It is a peer. So everybody knows about the other person's work. And also it can do what he do, he can, what about he can identify the critical technologists. Not everyone will be, he can give backup, but he can decide that one or two people are very critical to the project, and he can assign a backup staff member for all those people who are very critical. So by that way he will reduce the risk of turnover. Now even then some may happen. So how he will know, even after doing all these mitigation plans, what is happening? So he has to monitor it. So what are the risk monitoring activities? This is, we have come to the second M. The project manager monitors the factors that may provide an indication of whether the risk likelihood is changing. So whether the risk likelihood is still the high, or it has reduced, or it has reduced and again going up. So what is the trend of the risk likelihood, or in this case, particular case, how is the turnover likelihood changing? So he has to be very sensitively, he will do this. For example, in case of high staff turnover, he can study the general attitude of team members. He can see how they are handling the pressure, and what is the potential problems they are facing, whether enough compensation and benefits is being given to them, and what is the availability of jobs within the company and outside. So how he can motivate them, how he can provide them a career opportunity inside the company itself if they do good work. So all these things he can find out, and he can start motivating the people so that the general attitude of the team members is changed and the turnover decreases. So this is the monitoring activity that he has to do, to see whether the mitigation measures are effective or not. Then risk management and contingency planning. So this is the last M we are dealing with. It assumes that the mitigation effort has failed, even though you try to do a lot of mitigation thing, that mitigation will also fail, and that the risk has become a reality. For example, let us say that the technology was some problem, or maybe the experience and knowledge level of the skill set was a problem, that was the risk, and you have given a training to the staff members. But it may happen that on the way when you progress, the technology may change. After the architecture we have done, we will find that maybe after doing the prototype, we will find that whatever we had assumed doesn't hold good. So then we have to change the technology. In that case, the mitigation plan, whatever training we have given, is a completely failure. So like that, considering the example of staff turnover, the project is well underway and a number of people are giving the resignation letters, they are informing. If the mitigation strategy has been followed, then the backup is available, information is documented, knowledge has been dispersed across the team. So some amount of the impact has been reduced. In addition, the project manager may temporarily refocus the resources. Now he has to do the contingency. So he has to, now the mitigation is somewhat possibly giving the impact has been reduced. The probability has not reduced because still people are living, but the impact is reduced. So the loss is not so much. But what he can do, he can readjust his plan or the project schedule. So what he will do, already those work which can be done by the people who are remaining, he will try to finish that, and then by that time he can get in more people, and those people can come up to the level. They will need some time. So while they are preparing, while these people are getting, newcomers are getting trained, he can utilize the remaining people to do whatever work project in the schedule can be completed. So he will readjust the project schedule. So that is a contingency plan, because he is doing it after the risk has been incident. And those individuals who are living are asked to stop all work. They will do the knowledge transfer, and he will include some video based knowledge capture, complementary documents, meetings. So all these things are kind of crisis management. Contingency plans are most likely kind of crisis management. So now we come to the definition of RMM, that is risk mitigation, monitoring and mitigation plan. The steps incur additional project costs. So whenever we are doing this mitigation plan, we are doing the monitoring, because we have to possibly create some tools for the monitoring, and we are also doing the mitigation plan, we need some time, some cost. So providing additional resources as backup, then that is an additional cost, because we are unnecessarily putting one more resource. Similarly, if you want to do some regular training workshop, that will take time. If you want to do more documentation than it is required, then it will take time. So all these things have got a cost component. So always the risk mitigation and monitoring and the management, I think there is a mistyping here, it should have been management. It involves some cost. So that is why the RMM plan will have to be prepared, and the cost has to be calculated as part of the overall project plan. It has to be included in the estimate, and the cost has to be included into the overall project plan. Otherwise the project manager will have a problem. And this is always a formal plan, and each risk is documented by using a risk information sheet, either RMM plan, or you can use a risk information sheet. The RIS is maintained using a database system. So normally if you do it as a risk information sheet, it is a structured format. So you can create a database system, you can create a small application for it over a database, so that you can enter data and you can do the ordering, searching, taking out the reports. So most of the projects will develop this kind of thing, or there are many tools available. And once this, basically a risk information sheet is a different structure for the RMM plan. So once this is in the documented form, manual, and this is more in the online database system. Queries and reports can be obtained from the database application. So this is the contents of the risk information sheet. It has to start with the risk ID, which will identify the risk. Every risk has to be identified by a new numbering system. Then the identification date. So this is the code, this is the date you have identified, this is the probability of it, this is the impact, and the description of it. And you might have refined it. So what is the refinement context? So all the sub conditions will be stated. Then the mitigation and the monitoring, how you will monitor, and what is the mitigation strategy and what is the monitoring plan. So you have to state it in that what are the conditions, items to be done. Then you have the management contingency plan and the trigger. So why and when the contingency plan was created. So initially this plot will be empty, because you will only do the mitigation. But when the mitigation fails, then you have to start the contingency plan. So under what failure condition this happened, that you have to write. And when you do the contingency plan, you must have the risk exposure value and the contingency funding. The contingency plan which will have to be followed, such as what is the additional resource, change to the schedule, what is the change to the scope or any such thing, or the procedure, all that has to be written here in the contingency plan. Then we have to say what is the current status, because as you know, this is a dynamically changing data. So always it will change. So we have to know at any point of time in what stage is it. Is it in the identification stage? Is it in the mitigation phase? Is it in the monitoring phase? Or is it in the contingency management phase? So coming to the end of this lecture, we have discussed a lot of things regarding the risk. We have initially seen the process steps, and because we had already completed the first step in the previous lesson, so we discussed the other projection activities. We started discussing the second activity, and which is the estimation of the probability impact and the risk exposure, and we discussed how to prepare the risk table or the probability impact matrix. Then we discussed how some of the risks which are in the general form can be refined to multiple risks depending on the multiple conditions responsible for the risk. So first general risk, and then we defined it into a specific condition so that it will be easier for us to mitigate it. Then the risk mitigation plans and actions to avoid the risk or reduce the incident probability and or impact was considered, how we will do it, and the risk monitoring lists, what needs to be watched, those things, how we will do the monitoring of it to see that the effect of the mitigation is actually happening, that we have to check. So we discussed how the project manager will do the risk monitoring, and this is a very difficult task, and he has to do it very cautiously. And the risk management is carrying out the contingency plan. So if everything fails, then he has to take out his contingency plan and use the contingency fund, and he has to do the whatever is the problem, he has to fix it. And the risk management also involves documenting the RMMM plan and action document or a risk information sheet, either manually or by using a database application. So we have come to the end of this lesson, and that is completing our risk management under the project management section of your course on software engineering. So in the next class we will be dealing with other aspects of the project management and or the project activities. Thank you all.